there who's enjoying this Christmas day, and those who are watching online. Welcome to the Rosenbergs if you're watching in Scotland, and other people from around the world. To Sandra, maybe in Singapore or wherever you are, great to have you here. Well, it's one of my traditions on a Christmas Day service to give you some quirky gifts. Maybe you've, the hard-to-buy person, or there's strange gifts. So to make it a bit light-hearted as we start, here's my community service to you for some different gifts. Now, if you work in an office, you've probably been through that meeting that should have been an email. So there's a mug that says, I survived another meeting that should have been an email. So if you go to one of those meetings that should have been an email, you can bring the cup that says, I survived another meeting that shouldn't have been an email. There's some people that, they're just hard to buy for, or really, if we're honest, if we're doing the Santa thing, should be on the naughty list, really, shouldn't they? So here's what they deserve. You can buy a lump of coal for someone. There you go. Probably worse than it used to be, a lump of coal, but anyway, we won't go there. Now, we're going away soon, as I said, on a trip, and we have headphones, noise-cancelling headphones for the plane, which is great. And you can get different ones. You can get a Sony one, you can get Bose ones, you can get Beats by Dr. Dre, you can have Sennheiser ones. Well, someone asked for a pair of Beats. They would fit perfectly, that pair of Beats there. So here's another guy, he wanted a Kindle, and that's one of those devices. You can read books, you can download them instantly, and they're really cool. You can have them as an app or something like that. He must have been from New Zealand because he asked for a Kindle, and he got a Kindle. Which he also said that he got the real thing as well. This is a really good one. We had this problem when we had dindies over at our place, and we had all these steaks on the barbecue. Who belongs to what steak? Is this yours? Is this mine? Oh, I've got the good one. I don't know. Here it is. If you've got a lot of people over, here is the branding iron for your own steak. You can identify your steak. Isn't that good? That's my steak. I thought that's a good one. Now, we've been to the markets a lot. There's a West End markets just near us. Go to the South Bank ones. Every second market stall seems to be like a smelly candles one. Do you get that? And got all these lovely smelling sort of candles, Japanese, something or other, honeysuckle, Chinese rose hip, whatever. I think we need more popular smells. Here's a good one, a French fries candle. Wouldn't that be good, hey? Well, how about this one? Kentucky Fried Chicken smell candle. Yes. Any kids into superhero movies? Anyway, this would be cool for your room. A bat signal light. That'd be cool. Bit of a self-indulgent one. We lost our sausage dogs, both sausage dogs that we had over the last 12 months. So we're always looking for little sausage dog, things. There's a Stretch Armstrong one. And here's one, is a tea diffuser. That's not weird or creepy, is it? No. But the best one of the year for me is this. The stress has been such a big issue. And what's the best stress reliever? Bubble wrap. Isn't bubble wrap cool? You can just get it and just pop. You can put it on the floor and walk over it. Poppity pop, pop, pop. Oh, that's great fun. Just great stress reliever. Well, if you've been into one of those meetings that should have been an email, you can now have for your office or home a bubble wrap dispenser, the Pop-It box. It comes with a full roll of bubble wrap, perforated, so you can tear sheets off it. You might like to offer it to someone. You look stressed out. Would you like a Pop-It? And I think that's a really cool present. That's my present of the year to date. Well, the sermon can start now. I'll get serious now. Now, you might have seen already, I've already seen this morning on Facebook, there's been people who put up this phrase, Jesus is the reason for the season. Can we go just back a bit? That's the way. So Jesus is the reason for the season. Look, it's a good sentiment. It's a really great sentiment to have the idea that we keep Christ in Christmas. And I'm all for that. But I'm also all for being really precise in our language about Christmas. And I'm not sure it's the right phrase to say that Jesus is the reason for the season. It's a bit like saying doctors and nurses are the reason for hospitals. Well, doctors and nurses aren't really the reason for hospitals. We're the reason for hospitals because we get sick. Doctors and nurses are the solution to the reason for hospitals because we need doctors and nurses when we get sick. And so if we put that phrase up there we saw before, Jesus isn't really the reason for the season. We are the reason for the season. If we hadn't messed up so badly, there would be no need for Christmas. We are the reason. And hopefully it's not too much of a controversial thing. Years ago, there was a Christian singer called David Meece. Some of the oldies like me might remember David Meece. I looked up his bio the other day. He's 70 now, would you believe? Now, he might not be well known to you. Maybe he's not as well known in his family. He's got two siblings that are more famous than him, his brother and sister Mickey and Minnie. But anyway, but David Meece wrote a Christmas song years ago. And the words are this: as little children, we would dream of Christmas morn, of all the gifts and toys we knew we'd find. But we never realised a baby born one blessed night gave us the greatest gift of our lives. We were the reason that he gave his life. We were the reason that he suffered and died. To a world that was lost, he gave all he could give to show us a reason to live. We are the reason for Christmas. Jesus is the solution to the reason for Christmas. Because we've messed up life so badly. We've got so many wrong ideas and bad ideas about God. We come to wrong conclusions about God. Jesus himself tells us towards the end of his life the purpose of why he came. He was being interrogated by Pontius Pilate. And Pilate said, "So you're a king?" And Jesus responded, you say I'm a king. Actually, I was born and came into the world. He actually says why he was born. I was born and came into the world to testify to the truth. All who love the truth recognize that what I say is true. Jesus was born to tell us the truth, to tell us the truth about ourselves, but particularly I want to focus on today, to tell us the truth about God. That is why he came. All of us have some concept or some idea about God. There's not a culture on earth that doesn't have some sort of understanding of a higher power beyond us. But all our ideas about God throughout the earth are very different. We did a series at Westside through the year, and one of the things, as I spoke to different people about it, one of the ideas that resonated so much with people as we did it was a quote that someone said, "What we think about God could be the most important thing about us." What we think about God could be the most important thing about us. And yet our views of God are so different. And whether there is a God, what he is like, what he does like, who he accepts, how to please him, all of those are really key questions. And you maybe have changed your mind about what God is like, and other people have different views about God. But I believe Jesus came to show us what God is like and what he likes. And everyone's view of God can't be right because often they're so diametrically opposed. Sometimes it comes from the traditions that we have, the things that were passed on to us, the things that other people have told us or have said that that's important. It might be our circumstances that we've had in life, the things that have happened to us, and we've prayed to God and that did or didn't happen, and we've got a conclusion about God based on our circumstances. It might be the experiences in life that we've had, and again, prayed to God for something and it has or hasn't happened or happened differently. And we have a view of God, we make a conclusion of God based on those things. And it's not always right. We think of someone on TV who's an expert. And yet it's possible to have these ideas about God that are actually very wrong. And that's why Jesus came, in order to show us, to testify to the truth about God. Case in point is someone we call now the Apostle Paul. Now, he didn't start off in the Bible as Paul. He started off as Saul. And if you would have asked him, he knew what he knew about God and he thought he was pretty right. Now, he's credited with writing about half of the New Testament. And he was sure he was right about God back then. And he was sure he was right with God. But something happened to him that dramatically changed the way that he saw God. And if you'd ask him, Saul, do you know what God is like? He said, of course I know what God's like. It's been brought up in my tradition. I know everything about God, and I know that I'm right with God, and I know I'm right about God. And he came to a sudden realisation that everything he thought was right wasn't. In the course of a few hours, as he supernaturally had met Jesus and it dramatically changed, he had a sudden realisation that he didn't really know what God was like. And he really wasn't right with God as much as he thought he was. And what changed his mind wasn't some intangible thing. It wasn't an argument or a philosophical discussion or some sort of theological precept. It was Jesus himself that he met. And he totally changed. It became personal because he met someone. Later on, other Bible writers, as well as Paul, said that these traditions, the law, is like a shadow. Now, we know what shadows are. I've got a picture of a shadow here, and we know what shadows are. But Paul said a lot of these things that we get are like shadows. Now, shadows tell us something about the shadow that it casts. It can give us a basic outline, but shadows can be distorted. Shadows don't tell us everything, because you see in that shadow, I can tell you, their legs aren't that long, their body is not that long, their head is not that small. Shadows can sometimes twist and distort. They only give us a two-dimensional view of something. They can tell us something. And as Paul said, all that came before, it wasn't wrong, it was just incomplete. It was a two-dimensional view of something that was three-dimensional. It was like a sign that was pointing to someone or something, but it wasn't that something itself. And that's why Paul would say, what I thought I knew about God was just nothing in comparison. Because God came to earth to show us, not in two-dimensional form, but in three-dimensional form, what God was really like. And that's the purpose of Christmas, so that God could be with us. In Matthew's Gospel, as the angels summarise what was happening, it says, all this took place to fulfill what the Lord said through the prophet. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. We don't hear of anyone actually calling Jesus Emmanuel, but we do get that strong sense that Jesus was God with us. And he explained later on in his ministry what that really was about in John 14. He talked about going back to the Father and going and coming back and picking up his disciples. And Thomas said to him, Lord, we don't know the way you're going, and how can we know the way? And Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you know my Father as well. And from now on, you do know him and you have seen him. Philip said, Lord, show us the Father, then we'll be satisfied. Jesus replied, "Have I been with you all this time, and yet you still don't know who I am? Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. So why are you asking me to show him to you?" Now, this is a really important passage in the scheme of things, in understanding the purpose of Christmas, what Jesus came to do. And he's saying to his disciples, just focus. I'm the way. I'm the way to God. I am the truth about God. I am the life of God. No one understands, no one can figure out their way to God unless they come through me. And Jesus is saying, guys, you'll miss understanding God the Father. You'll miss knowing what God the Father is like if you come any way except through me. Don't look past me as if I'm sort of, one step, to go to understanding the Father. I'm it. And don't fall short of me, because if you fall short of me, you won't understand God as well. I'm it. You'll miss God the Father if you come any way except through me. And that's the reason you should consider or reconsider following Jesus. And it's so radical. It's either absolutely true, as many were convinced that it was, or it's blasphemy and craziness at the highest level. Because Jesus said, if you know me, you will know God the Father as well. And from now on, you have known him. If you want to know what God is like, then look at me. I'm as good as it gets. I'm as close as it gets. I'm as clear as it can get to understanding God. And rather than it all being a mystery, and rather than that it all being a shadow and a two-dimensional thing that's a bit distorted and people overemphasize some things, Jesus said, I want to come and reduce the mystery. I want to bring some clarity. I want to put some personality into this. I want you to know what he's like, what he values, the way to please him. And if you know what I do, if you've heard what I say, you've heard God speak. If you've seen how I act, you've seen how God acts. Because we're the same. That's the reason for the season. And Jesus is the solution to the reason for the season. Because we have some unclear and untrue and warped and twisted and distorted views of God. And Jesus came to bring clarity, to bring personality, and to remove some of the mystery of who God is. Jesus says, don't look out there and don't even look in here. Look at Jesus. Look at him. And I know for some of you, as I said, those things before, traditions, experiences, circumstances that we've had, but they can be very dangerous things because they lead us to wrong conclusions. The experiences we've had, some people have had some really tough things happen, and they think, oh, God's let that happen and God mustn't be caring. Maybe the experiences that we've had have warped and twisted us. Maybe some of the traditions that have been passed on to us are good-natured and good meaning, but not the whole thing. Don't lean so hard on those traditions that you've come to accept, because they might be shadows. And the reality is not just some theology, it is a person. It is Jesus. You know what? Want to know what God is like? Look at Jesus. And then Jesus, in the end, said, I'm going to show you by actions and not just by words. And he sacrificed himself on the cross for us. I've got this here in your outline as well. The reason he came was to illustrate and to demonstrate and communicate what God is like and who God is. And that's the reason for the season. And Jesus is the solution to the reason for the season. Final thing I want to finish with, just before we share in communion, is the message that was announced by the angels. It would be good news that would cause great joy for all people. And the good news is clear now, because now it's clear what we can do to please God. Now it's clear what God is like. And I leave you up to the challenge of being able to read the Gospels and read about Jesus and understand in more detail what God is like. This is good news. You don't have your sins counted against you. All the things that you've done in life, you don't have that held against you. God has come in the form of Jesus not to punish you, not to condemn you, but to forgive you. And that's good news. We have a resilience, we have a power in our lives that we didn't have before. There's so much good news. And all of that would cause great joy. I know there's so much going on, there's so much tough stuff in life. But joy is like this permanent current running through our lives. And it will be for all people. It doesn't matter what you've done, it doesn't matter where you've been, it doesn't matter how much you've sinned, it doesn't matter whether you've thought badly of God or not. It's for everyone. And I just want to just say as we finish, if you're a follower of Jesus, and somehow this has ceased to be good news, and it doesn't bring you great joy anymore, and you somehow have thought it's not for all people, it's for me, but it's not for them, and you're not passionately involved in making it for all people, then maybe you need to rediscover the true reason for the season. But if you're not a follower of Jesus and you haven't heard it as good news, then maybe the person you heard it from got it wrong. Maybe your conclusions about God were wrong. If you're not a follower of Jesus and you've seen in other people given great joy, then maybe they've got it wrong. Maybe there's a joy in life beyond the circumstances of life that you're missing. And if you're not a follower of Jesus and somehow you think it's not for all people because I'm too far gone and I've done so much wrong, or I'm born in the wrong country, or whatever it is, if you think it's not for all people, then maybe you need to have a look at that again. Because the message direct from heaven is that this is good news that would cause great joy for all people. Now, our tradition, we broke it a bit last night because we opened our presents last night because we're on the way to the airport fairly quickly. But our tradition has been to open our presents on Christmas Day. God has given you a great present this Christmas. He's given you himself. And my gift to you this year is that little cup. You want to grab it out now for me? Just play with the top of it. You can see that there's actually the bread and the juice in one thing. The very top, there's a plastic, very thin plastic thing. And the bread is sandwiched between the plastic cover and the aluminium one. Can you see that? And what I'm going to ask you to do in a minute is peel off the plastic cover and we'll have access to the bread. And then later on, we'll peel off the aluminium cover and get access to the juice. Just be careful you don't spill it over all your nice clothes. But I want to ask you as a gift to open the present that God gave you and that you will have an encounter with Jesus as you remember. The bread represents his body, which he gave for us. The cup of juice represents his blood. Now, if you're having trouble with your fine motor skills, someone might be able to help you, but just peel back the plastic, take the bread, and let's have it together. Let's open our gift together and remember Jesus. I'm going to ask you to take back the aluminium part as well. Just let the juice, and right on on the left-hand side of each row, there's a red cup, and you can collect those at the end. But let's drink the cup together and remember Jesus today. Heavenly Father, as we wrap up today, I just want to thank you for the greatest gift that all of us have received, the gift of Jesus. And thank you that we don't need to be in the dark, we don't need to be unaware of what you are like, because you've revealed yourself to us in Jesus. So, Lord, help us to be clear about who you are, to do that work ourselves, like Paul has discovered that what he thought about God, what he thought he was doing to be right with God, he was totally wrong about. It wasn't totally wrong, it was just incomplete. There was something better that was to come. So, Lord, I just pray we'd have a fresh encounter with Jesus, that this Christmas we'd realise again what a precious gift he is, and that we would see you in a new light, in a new way, a three-dimensional view, not just a two-dimensional one. So thank you for this time. Thank you for the purpose of Christmas. Thank you for the reason for the season. Give us safety in all our travels and what we're doing. And thank you for this special time in Jesus' name. Amen.